To me, it ends up being one of these Clásicos that end up maybe generating a great deal of anticipation because both teams are doing well. Both teams are doing great, in fact. Maybe a little stumbling block here and there for Real Madrid. Maybe a little stumbling block here and there for Barcelona. Barcelona only ahead of Real Madrid 3 points. Does it mean a great deal? Yes. Does it mean very little? It could. It depends on a lot of things. But at the end of when we start looking at this, it ends up being a revival of sorts. Or maybe revival is a little bit strong of a word, but it ends up being the interest once again of a rivalry that kind of lost its luster over the past 3-4 years. When Barca would win, they'd blow out the opposition. When Real Madrid would win, it would be in a lackluster fashion, but it will still be a win nonetheless. And there was just a little bit of oomph missing out of it that it had in previous years. I mean, it didn't have the best players on the planet playing in this encounter. Now, today, we end up having not only the most likely winner of the Ballon d'Or, the player that would come in second, and maybe a future 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. And I'm not only, as far as the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, you can pick the sides, and you would probably end up being right, or mostly right in terms of that. Real Madrid come in, a match that they struggled in at home in Champions League against Borussia Dortmund. They're able to turn around in a big way and taking advantage of a Borussia Dortmund that does show a lot of defensive liabilities. They face a Barcelona side that may have the occasional lapse here and there, that may have certain lapses in very rare moments, but Real Madrid understand how to play those types of games, and they can take advantage of those errors in a very lethal manner. So you look at the line, I mean, you can start looking at it from the perspective of the first absence that they're going to have is no Thibaut Courtois. Thibaut Courtois is out due to injury, so Lunin will be coming in goal, and that's a. Is it a big loss? Yes, it is. I mean, Lunin, as good as a goalkeeper as he's shown to be, and has had big performances in some of the biggest games for Real Madrid over the past 6 months to a year, he's not Thibaut Courtois. Let's be real about that. He is not Thibaut Courtois, but he is also a fundamental part of giving that depth at goalkeeper for Real. I mean, if Thibaut Courtois gets injured and you have somebody else, it's a similar problem that, or maybe not to such an extent, that Barcelona would have had if Szczesny had to be the starter, but Iñaki Peña comes in, and Iñaki Peña over the time during the times that he's been called upon has been able to shine as well. So to a certain extent, it ends up being that. Although Lunin has been able to perform in big moments in bigger games compared to Iñaki Peña. Now, not a knock on Iñaki Peña. He's been able to do what he can do with what he's had, and he's been able to perform decent, very well, I may say. So Lunin in goal. It'll be Lucas Vázquez. Obviously, Dani Carvajal's out for the rest of the season and maybe part of next season as well, or the Club World Cup. Let's put it there. So it'll be Vázquez, Militao, Rudiger, Mendy. And then the question ends up lying for Real Madrid is, do I play a 4-4-2 or do I play a 4-3-3? At least in one's opinion. And if I do play with 4 in the middle, do I have 3, kind of the triple pivot as they call it in Spain? Or do you end up having is it going to be Valverde, Bellingham, Tchouaméni, and Camavinga? Is it going to be Valverde, Tchouaméni, Bellingham, and Modric? Which combination, or Camavinga and or Tchouaméni end up being the interchangeable ones? Who knows? That'll end up being an interesting combination that lies there. Okay, they don't play a 4-4-2. They play with a 4-3-3. Does it end up being that Brahim Diaz gets the start? Or does he play further back? Or is it the beginning of Endrick getting some minutes of importance for Real Madrid? I mean, he's been able to perform. Well, now he has got to perform for the reason that he wanted to come to Real Madrid. So is Endrick going to end up getting minutes? He probably will. But the question is, does he get him later on in the match, or does he end up getting him at the beginning as a starter? That would be interesting to see how Carlo Ancelotti sets things up. I would look at maybe a 4-4-2. I would look at maybe trying to match up in terms of the midfield, trying to establish some type of numerical superiority. Real Madrid is not a team that's going to press. They don't press incessantly. They know how to press. They know when to press. Barcelona are a team that presses consistently because they have the legs to do it, they have the players to do it, and they have the capacity of being able to play in a more compact manner and play their way out of situations. Barcelona with their backline, maybe I'll jump back and forth a little bit to kind of give you a reference. I mean, let me do that. Let me do that. Of course, I'm going on the fly here. I talked about 4-4-2, 4-3-3. Well, up top, it would end up being Mbappe, Vini. That's for sure. Now, if they go 4-3-3, it would end up being Brahim Diaz or Endrick. So there we go. That point is resolved. Barcelona, with their 11, Iñaki Peñangol, Koundé, Cubarsí, Íñigo Martinez, and Balde. Backline of 4. No problem there. Now, does Casado play? I mean, another youngster that's been able to come through and really begin to show the quality that he does have. Casado and Pedri, do they play, or does Frankie de Jong get a start? Where do you end up putting? I mean, when you start looking at all the options that Hansi Flick has in the middle, it ends up being a problem, but a good one, which shows you depth. It's something Barcelona in some stretches didn't have. Didn't have the confidence in saying, okay, fine, you go to the bench, but be ready to perform. And that ends up being a good thing for Barca to a certain extent. People say, what are you talking about? Well, number one, not everybody's going to have a good day every day. Number two, it establishes competition. Number three, and this is not the one that everyone wishes upon anyone, the fact that there could be injuries, well, you know that somebody can step in and produce, and the level of performance doesn't drop off that much. Maybe in some cases, it could even increase. That's something that you have to be looking at. Casado, Pedri, with Lamine Yamal, Dani Olmo, who makes his return to the starting 11, most likely, and Rafinha as well playing. Of course, Rafinha and Lamine Yamal could end up switching back and forth. You could see Rafinha dropping back behind Robert Lewandowski. You could see Olmo and Lamine Yamal moving around. So it's going to be a very mobile attacking 4, maybe even attacking 5 if Pedri decides to move up a little bit more. Attacking 5, I may say. Koundé and Balde end up, going down the wings a little bit more. That ends up giving a lot of flexibility in terms of that. Rafinha, obviously coming into this match with a hat trick, and I said in another video in just a few days ago, to me, as of right now, Rafinha ends up being one of the best, if not the best player in La Liga right now. Now, does it mean that he'll be the best player in 6 months? No. I mean, there are a lot of good players in La Liga right now that could end up stepping in and getting past Rafinha. I have to wait and see how things go. I mean, also, if he keeps this level going, it ends up being very difficult for anyone to try and surpass him. So, Lamine Yamal, Dani Olmo, and Rafinha, obviously Robert Lewandowski up top. And it's an interesting one for Robert Lewandowski because he comes in good form. He comes in without anyone doubting him. I mean, last season, he was on the verge of leaving at one point. People were talking about him going, well, he's done, go to MLS. And that ends up being, farthest from the cases. Now Lewandowski ends up being not only one of the leading goal scorers for Barcelona, not only one of the leading goal scorers, he ends up being that elder statesman, if you will, for Barcelona, and really saying, okay, fine, I don't have to, but I want to, and I can, so I will. If I don't score, but I give an assist, good. If I don't get an assist and I score 2 goals, even better. If I end up, being part of the reason why Rafinha ends up being successful, that's great. And vice versa. If Rafinha helps me score goals, even better. So that ends up being one of those factors where Lewandowski it seems like a great deal of pressure has come off him. Matchups that you can start really analyzing is the midfield. Do I have 4? Do I have 2 for Real Madrid? Do I have 3? You have to start how is Real Madrid going to be attacking? Now, Barcelona, as much as you want to talk about how they press and how they defend, defensively that backline still has its moments of susceptibility, especially if you have very mobile players. How is that backline with Koundé, with Cubarsí, and because Koundé and Cubarsí will have to be waiting and seeing what they're going to do, not only with Vini, with Vinicius Jr. running down that left side or down their right side, Real Madrid's left, is how the movements end up synchronizing with Kylian Mbappe if he gets the ball and plays it out wide and Vini crosses in, and who else comes in after that. That ends up being the big puzzle that you have to end up seeing. Is it Valverde, which most likely it will be? Valverde this season has come in and stepped up in terms of that third scoring option or that fourth when Rodrigo's playing. Rodrigo's not going to be playing, so immediately Valverde will be looked upon to be one of those finishers inside the area. Maybe it ends up being Jude Bellingham, which he also ends up being that. And if there's a player that if Vinny, if Mbappe can't handle it, well, Jude Bellingham can handle his own. I mean, I've even said it. To me, Bellingham should have been the man for the Ballon d'Or. If he doesn't, oh well, that's neither here nor there at this point. A very interesting set of matchups. Same thing can be said with Robert Lewandowski. If you have Antonio Rudiger and you have Eder Militao, how they neutralize him. How do you end up stopping Lamine Yamal from making those those runs internally when he cuts to his left? Rafinha. So it ends up being a match with the potential for lots of scoring because you have a lot of players that can score. And that's what makes this match such a beautiful encounter to be watching from a neutral standpoint. From a neutral standpoint, because will there be excitement? Will I go, oh, yeah, I will be. I surely will be. But to me, I don't care who wins or loses. On Sportsmax picked that Real Madrid will win 3-2, something along those lines. I believe that. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely. This Barcelona team can probably steamroll this Madrid team 4-0 and not even breathe heavily. And of course, the opposite can be said as well for Real Madrid, because these are the types of matches that they've been looking forward to all year long. So let me know what you think, man, because I'm really curious to see how everyone is looking at this Clásico. A very, I don't know if atypical, but one that can really generate a great deal of expectation. For me, I'm super hyped about it for the first time in a long time. And I'm truly excited to see how these two teams are going to act. And obviously, two teams that are going to be in the fight for the Champions League, in my opinion. And I really like that. So let me know what you think. All right? Talk to you soon.